Mr. Nader, here we are again, live on Yonkers Voice. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us. Tell us what's going on in Westchester County, Yonkers, New York State.
Well,
Thank you.
Ru, it's my pleasure to be on the show. And, today is a special day, 17th of March. Today is St. Patrick's Day. So, well, I'd like to start off by wishing all our Irish American friends and the Irish American community here in Yonkers a very happy and a joyous and a healthy St. Patty's Day. And for all of us today who are honorary Irish, we're going to celebrate and enjoy the day and the customs and the culture. So that's to start off the show. And in general, as we spoke often about the pandemic, and I think it is still the major news of the day. And although we've seen progress with regards to how many people have been given vaccinations, and we still feel that safety is still crucial. And when I go around and I see that most people, fortunately, are complying with safety procedures. People are still wearing masks. People are taking precautions and the distancing and the washing. I think it's crucial. So, here in Yonkers, we spoke the last show about the mass vaccination site right here in Yonkers. I'm very proud and happy to have been part of really an effort by many individuals, local and state and federal, to really push this mass vaccination site, which is at North Broadway at the Armory in Quincy Place. And the good thing is, we're closing in close to some 15,000 people that have been vaccinated, predominantly from Yonkers, and that's really good news. When you look at the vaccination and the number of people that are positive, we don't realize how drastic of an impact that took on the nation. 30 million cases, 30 million cases in the USA. When you look at the numbers, that's practically anywhere from 8% of the population, America's population, that were infected with this deadly virus. And we're looking at numbers of nearly 550,000 people that have died. And so here in Westchester, we're glad that the percentages and the numbers are going down. The number of people that are vaccinated is becoming somewhere in the area of 15%. And we know that in order to develop this herd immunity, we need to bring it up to 60, 70% at the very least. So I'm confident with the amount of vaccinations that are available. There's many that are being distributed. The Yonkers location has some 5,000 shots a week that we get directly from the federal government. So to people that are listening, it's not as difficult as it was last month to make appointments. It's not as difficult, to get the shot because, in my opinion, I think the shots are available. The appointments have been easier. There's been many offices, including mine, that have helped people, whether they're old or disabled, to help them navigate and learn how to make the appointments and to actually help them make the appointments, whether it's at a pharmacy, the Armory, at any facility here in Yonkers and Westchester that is given the vaccine. So I think we see the light at the end of the tunnel. We're looking good, but we got to continue to stay cautious.
Mr. Nader, things are getting a little bit more relaxed, no doubt.
Yeah.
Actually, I just got a notification from a pharmacy called the Limac Pharmacy
Correct.
on Clean Avenue, also Grassy
Spring Pharmacy.
Spring Pharmacy, to let me know that they have vacancies.
Yeah.
They have vaccines available. Just call up and make an appointment. And now it's 60 and up.
Yeah.
So do it. Lots of people are still stuck in parties. I believe in Trump, this and that. Guys, believe in your health. Okay. We don't want you to realize later on oh, I should have taken the vaccine.
Sure. Well, health is not politics. I mean, people have to realize you don't take the vaccine because you support one candidate over the other. I mean, that's really foolish. You know, the science is pretty clear that the virus is deadly, it's bad, it spreads easy, and that in order to safeguard, we got to, of course, practice all the safety, and we got to be vaccinated. I think, you know, when the president and all the leading scientists, you know, not only stress the importance, but they're first in line to take the vaccine, it's really an indication of their belief and my belief that, you know, the science is pretty clear. It's not political. This is why many of the former president's supporters were encouraged to take the vaccine. And even the former president yesterday finally realized, came to his senses and told his supporters, please get vaccinated. I think the reality is clear. We see what's happening in states like Texas, where government have relaxed the restrictions. Really, we all agree too much, you know, to the point where, you know, I'm all for begin to slowly open the economy, you know, have a plan in place, make sure that, as we're doing in New York, you know, we started off with 15% occupancy in restaurants in New York City. It was outdoor occupancy, you know, service only. In Yonkers, we had a combination, but then it went up to 50%. And the 50% is reflective even with weddings and events of that nature, where now catering halls and businesses can have up to 150 people. Somebody wants a wedding, a baptism, a memorial, God bless, whatever occasion people need to gather family and friends. Now it's becoming, you know, a closer step to normalcy. And that's what all of us look for. But we got to continue to be careful that we don't move in the normalcy at a speed where we reverse back with infections.
So, Mr. Nader, just before we go much further, let me give a shout out to certain people that they are been helping the community. Limark Pharmacy, Sunshine Pharmacy at the hospital, St. John's Hospital. Call them up, make your appointment. Guys, this is not conservatives versus liberal. This is about you, your health. Personally, you guys know where I stand politically, but that does not mean that I don't have dear friends that are conservative and that I appreciate them very much. And I want them to be with us so I can keep fighting with them for many years to come. Please take your vaccine, protect your life, protect your family. Now, Mr. Nader, New York State is in a chaos right now with this situation with the governor. How is the ambience in Albany?
Well, you know, Albany really, when it comes to the executive branch and the governor's situation, to some extent, you know, is in turmoil, you know, and politically, there's varied opinions as to, you know, the governor's situation. Many in the state Senate and the Assembly have called for the governor's resignation, and some have called even for the governor's impeachment. And many of us, including myself, believe very strongly that, you know, we in America, we're blessed with constitutional rights. We're blessed with what I call as an attorney, and most of us recognize the importance of due process right. Due process is a given opportunity, a right that every citizen of our state and nation has, which is the opportunity to be heard. When there's allegations, when there's charges made, an individual deserves the right to be heard. In this case, there was allegations made against the governor, and the governor, of course, indicated his innocence, and therefore there was a push at the time, you know, to ask the Attorney General to do an investigation. So many of us in government believe in the process where there's allegations, get an investigation that's fair, that's equitable, and investigate the matter. once the investigation takes place, then we can determine how serious, the allegations are, whether they warrant impeachment or resignation, whether they warrant someone being given advice or given recommendations. In the world of business, for example, if there was a not too serious allegation and someone, for example, crossed the line with what they said and how they said, we give them cultural training, we give them professional development, we try to give them notice and advice that the conduct, the way you're conducting yourself is wrong. But in this case, in my opinion, again, I look at it as a member of the community, as a legislator, and I look at where the allegations are coming from, and I look at the motive and the intent. From one end, you have the Republicans from one end that are looking for payback for what, in their mind, the Democrats did to Trump when allegations were made. So this is their opportunity where they see they're powerless in New York State. The Democratic Party has superior control at all levels of government. So therefore, this is their opportunity to call for the resignation and impeachment of the governor. And they're basing it primarily on the whole nursing home situation, which all of us agree is grave. But in all fairness, the legislative body, the last 10 days, took drastic action and passed so many bills and legislative initiatives that fix, to a large extent, and hold nursing homes more accountable and puts them in a position where they need to make sure there's more safety, there's more precautions that safeguards seniors. So for me, that was my responsibility as a legislator, and this is where I see we needed to go, and that is tackle the problem and fix it. But here you have a Republican wing that was looking to attack the governor because that was a political opportunity, which I think, is unfair. The other end of it, some members of my own party that might have felt, hey, the governor disagrees with them on their agenda to collect in revenue and the level of services they feel New Yorkers are entitled to. And that element, also called for the impeachment and the resignation. So you really had, in many ways, what I call as a historian, the unholy alliance, an unholy alliance of ultra-progressive Democrats and Republicans that have completely different ideologies, different motives, different intents, but they're joining together and calling for the ouster of the governor. Now, the governor has to prove his innocence. There has to be a valid investigation, and at which point, as a legislator, then I would make a determination as to whether or not it warrants any further action. But right now, my focus is we're still in a pandemic. We're in budget negotiations. Our focus, in my opinion, largely has to be focused on making sure we pass a budget on time, that the budget definitely addresses the needs of New Yorkers with healthcare, with education, with infrastructure, with transportation, and a number of other areas that are important for me.
Now, Mr. Nader, as you know, we are live and there is people engaging and asking questions. So we have a question from Carrie Ann, and this is what she asks. Mr. Nader, comments on the Washington Post retracting false quotes about the President Trump released yesterday. President said that he didn't say those things, and now the paper admits he was right. They're asking your opinion on that, if you have one.
And this is what, if you can rephrase it, this is in reference to President Trump?
Yes, the president said he did not say those things, and the paper are acknowledging that he did not, even though
but please, what things are they alleging he said?
Well, that was my question to the person who posed. What is your question? Is this a question or is this a statement? And the person replied, they want your opinion. I guess they have to rephrase the question in regards to specifically.
Yeah, what was said. I'm not sure, the topic. I'll be more than glad to respond to it.
So many things have been said.
I think the recent issue has been whether or not President Trump is telling his supporters to get vaccinated. Is that the issue?
Have no idea. So
Yeah,
let's hope that the person will rephrase the question so we know exactly what was the meaning. Now, at least it's better late than never. The president took the vaccine in secrecy.
Yeah.
If he had done that publicly, probably lots of his followers and supporters would be vaccinated by now. But at least he came out yesterday and said he took it, and hopefully the supporters will follow up and start taking that vaccine as well.
Of course. I mean, we all know the rollout of the vaccination, many of us believe, was slow by the former administration. And largely because there was really a conflict, which was based on ideology and politics, whether or not people should wear masks, whether people should be safeguarded, whether the economy should be closed or not, or limited. And in many ways, that impacted the lack of federal government efficiency in the rollout. And that's what many of us feel took place during the past year. We also acknowledge there was a lot of uncertainty. Very often we can't be Monday night quarterbacks, which is what's happening today, where many of us look at, what took place last March during the height of the pandemic or last summer and make decisions or remarks as to why didn't government, take this action, or why did the governor, for example, in New York, put the Javits Center as a location for vaccinations back last March and May. Why did we open up the county center here in Westchester and it wasn't really utilized as much? And I look back and I say, wait a minute, at the time, you have to realize, with the pandemic, there was a lot of uncertainty. So what if, for example, we didn't open up the Javits Center or the county center and the virus continued to expand, right? And you had double and triple numbers, and already the hospitals were panicking with the lack of equipment and the lack of staff and the lack of space, and the ERs were packed. We failed to realize, Ru, the days when this time last year we're looking outside on television or in person, looking outside hospital ERs, and there was refrigerated morgue trucks out there. That was the severity. That was the situation at the time where, if you're in the capacity of a decision maker, whether the president or a governor or local officials, who knew at the time how the spread would be either controlled or expanded? What if it was expanded and you never put the Javits Center and people died as a result of a lack of being prepared? People would have been criticized. Fortunately, and I say it 100 times, fortunately, we're able in New York through closures and monitoring and efficiency in many ways to really curtail the spread, because people failed to realize we were the first state hit in the nation. So we took the lead in really setting the example. New York State took the lead. We went through the worst time a year ago this time. We went through the worst period with the pandemic, and many states across the nation looked to us, and they looked to New York to really guide the way. Were mistakes made? Yes. Anybody that tells you mistakes weren't made wouldn't be telling you the truth. Mistakes were made with nursing homes. Mistakes were made with trying to close regions of the state where maybe they shouldn't have completely been closed. And that's why legislators and the governor himself approved a phase process where, depending on the numbers of active cases in your community or region of the state, determined what the percentages of closure would be or reopening would be.
Mr. Nader, we have a question here from Ron Mathen. Maybe I misspelled his last name, Matten. He says, considering this vaccine, it's only under emergency use authorization, can the vaccine be required for school attendance?
Well, right now, the whole issue of vaccination has been a big issue. About a year and a half ago, we had a big issue with vaccination, and many individuals, really fought hard. Parents that felt, parental choice was crucial, and that sometimes children have what they call a medical need, or, they may get ill by taking the vaccine. So there was always a medical exemption, right? And historically, there was also a religious exemption where people had the right, and many practiced that right, to say, you know what, my religion forbids me from taking the vaccine. And sometimes schools and institutions, public institutions, strongly believe that in order to stop the spread of a potential virus of any sort, that children and as well as adults in today's virus need to be vaccinated. So it's often a debate between those that feel my individual constitutional rights, let me make the decision, don't force me to take the vaccine. And then the other end of it is the best interests of the public at large, where the public at large strongly feels that if I'm looking to safeguard the children in a school setting, and I allow a child who's unvaccinated to come in and potentially spread a virus to all the other children, then you have the majority, and this is what we've witnessed from our end, trying to be objective and fair. You have the majority there saying, what are you doing this for? Why, if somebody wanted their child not to be vaccinated, that's fine, but why allow them into a setting where they can inflict the virus or whatever the case may be on other children, other people? So it's really a debate, and I myself have been a strong advocate of, if there's a warranted, really warranted and documented emergency, and there's definitely a public need, then we should look at efforts to make sure that we safeguard the masses. Having said that, I'm a big advocate of parental decision-making, where they want their kids to go to school, where they want healthcare, what type of shots their kids should be. Plus, I'm a strong advocate of, allowing medical exemptions. So if a child legitimately has a condition where taking the vaccine would cause more harm, of course, we don't want children to be harmed. So I'll continue to advocate for making sure that the medical establishment and the state respects medical exemptions when necessary.
So Ron, you have your answer. And Ron, don't forget that we're waiting to interview you. Ron is a candidate or had shown interest to run for public office in Yonkers.
Oh, well, good luck, Ron.
In case you don't know Mr. Nader. So, Mr. Nader, let me ask you this. I understand the right to parent. This is my child. I have the right to make the proper decision. But because of religions, beliefs, and whatever. But I ask, which one is the higher law? Is the law of man or the law of God? Okay, when it comes time that, look, the vaccine will protect others, should I allow you to exercise what you believe, or do I have the right to protect those, the majority of the people? Where do you stand on that, sir?
Well, see, you got to realize, and I'm going to put on my lawyer hat on, right? What I learned in law school, even though we're big advocates of individual rights and constitutional rights and freedom of speech, right? So we preach and we say every person is entitled to freedom of speech. Say what you want, because you're free to speak your say. But then, to give you an analogy and to the audience, let's say you're in a movie house. You're in a movie house and it's dark and the movie house is packed, right? And then all of a sudden somebody determines, well, I have a right, freedom of speech. So they stand up and they yell out to the top of their lungs, fire! The panic that would cause is enormous. In a dark movie house, to get out and yell out fire, the panic of people running. So even though you have a freedom of speech right, but there's also rules and regulations that protect society in general and the general. So I'm a big advocate of, yes, practice your religion, and the belief in God or whatever a person believes in is crucial and very important. But then if it impacts the well-being of the majority, then that's the right of government to say, well, yes, you can practice your religion, but when it crosses the line and decisions you make impact the well-being of the general public, then we have a right to set rules and regulations to say, you know what, that's potentially dangerous, and therefore we have a right. So yes, we protect individual rights. We respect and believe in individual rights. The rights of religion is crucial for many of us. We believe in a God. We believe in whatever religion we believe in. But at the same time, we live in a world that has a lot of complex concerns and issues. And when it comes to health issues that may become dangerous, then issues of vaccination and issues similar, do play a role. So I'm all for keeping a process that gives you your rights, but at least gives you foundations, gives you barriers, gives you limitations on what's right and what's wrong, what impacts the general well-being and what doesn't.
Now, on that note, we are going to move into something else that also relates to God, religion, and freedom of speech. I don't know if you heard our interview the other day with a teacher on Yonkers Public School that has been fired, dismissed, and I believe officially she was fired yesterday. She alleges, we are not confirming, we are not saying that's what happened. She alleges that she was fired for one reason and one reason only. We believe that there is more to the story than what we just heard. She said that the reason for her firing was because she had a mask that said, "I love Jesus." You were an educator, and I believe you're still an educator at heart.
Yes.
And you were involved with the school public systems. How do you think there is any truth to it that the principal, and I believe it's a principal that you know very well, Principal Delaney.
Yes.
You know her very well.
I do.
And can you tell us a little bit about the principal, what you know of her, without really getting involved in a story that you might not know all the facts, but just superficially? What do you think?
Well, when I was, I'm not familiar with the case, honestly, but in general, I can say that, I've had the pleasure of working with Principal Delaney. When I was a principal for many years at School 13, Miss Delaney worked as a teacher for me and was always very child friendly, was very parent friendly, had excellent communication skills, was an excellent teacher. And I, for one, motivated her and encouraged her in many ways to be an administrator, and she took on many responsibilities. Now, in this case at hand, it's really, a case that impacts, public service, impacts education. And that's really when an employee, no matter what the role or duty, crosses the line of what becomes ethical, what becomes, a pattern, what becomes legal or illegal, or, unwarranted conduct. And the reason I say that is, even though many of us that practice Christianity and believe in Jesus Christ and look at him as a savior, truly believe that. And I say to those individuals, practice in your home, in your religious institutions, in your churches or mosque or synagogue or whatever you pray, you have the right to preach and practice your religion. But whenever, our beliefs, whether in religion or sex preference, for example, or any other controversial area, then as educators, our policy normally is, we respect your individual rights, whether you're a teacher or a parent or a student, but there's a limit to being able, especially when you're a teacher, to walk into a class with a mask that has on it, I love Jesus, and I may love Jesus as a Christian, but at the same time, as an educator, if it was my school, I would call in the teacher and say, look, that crosses the line. That's not correct. I'm not sure the pattern of whether the person wore the mask and immediately they were terminated. I don't see that as a process. Administrators are normally taught, to work with staff, to document, to give proper notice. And my understanding is, if I know Miss Delaney, the way I know her, I'm sure she might have reached out to this teacher and said at least numerous times and documented, please come in and meet with me. I respect your wishes, I respect your religious beliefs, but at the same time, it's not fair to children, it's not ethical or proper to walk in with any mask, so, and we see that even on public meetings. When I get on the Assembly website, for example, and we legislate a lot on the Assembly floor. Lately, we legislate through Zoom meetings as we're doing. I don't have the right as an assemblyman to wear, for example, my mask and have on it, I love public libraries. And people say, what's wrong with that? Everybody loves public libraries. But if it's a message on public television as an assemblyman using the chamber of the New York State Assembly and put in any message that, well, for example, specifically becomes wrong, well, and I'm restricted from doing that.
We have seen congressmen with masks saying BLM, and we have seen congressmen with messages that are not something that we want to see, but they have the right to do it. Now, yeah. Would you also call somebody into your office if I was to display a chain with the crucifix that displays my love for Jesus, or a Jewish teacher that might teach, with unshaved beard? That is also a display of faith. Would you also call him in the office and say, look, you need to shave? But again, I'm not saying that this is what happened to this teacher. This is what she alleges, okay? So there must be more to the story.
There must be more. I mean, historically, in any workplace, for example, there's always been the issue of dress codes, for example. And as if you're at a school teaching, for example, it becomes an issue, and it's become a union issue. It's become a legal issue in many cases. Can a school, for example, can a college, can a public workplace demand that there's a certain dress code? If you're working as a banker, are you allowed to walk in without a suit and a jacket and a tie and greet, customers, or in financial investments? Or if you're a doctor, are you allowed to treat patients without having, proper white coat and proper mask on and so forth? If you're a teacher, are you allowed to walk in with jeans on and slippers, or walk in and teach with your pajama? I mean, where's the limit where you may say, individual rights, but then again, what we spoke about, there's a norm, there's an expected conduct that you, in whatever profession you have, need to present. Do you have a soldier, or do you have a police officer in law enforcement that is allowed to look rugged and look disrespectful? It becomes almost symbolic. It becomes almost an unwritten law. Now people are challenging and saying, well, if I'm a good teacher, yeah, big deal. What if I come with my hair is long? And what if I come where I'm unshaven for 6 months, but I rather have a beard, that's gonna go a foot below, and I'm teaching kindergarten kids, or I'm gonna walk in with a upper tank where the too much skin is disclosed. And is that something kids could be looking, or should be looking at their teacher, for example, whether male or female, with how they look and how they dress. Some people will argue, "No, well, it's freedom and we can dress as we want." Some of us will argue and say, there's a certain standard, certain expected conduct, and a certain expected dress code. For example, even with religious institutions, some clergy, whether in synagogues or mosques or in churches, may say, yeah, we want everybody to come up and get communion, but women, for example, have to, for example, put a scarf on. Somebody may argue and say, I want to get communion, but I'm not going to wear a scarf on, or I'm going to go into a religious house and walk in with dungarees, or walk in with jeans, and walk in with shorts, and it's my right to do so. And then it becomes contradictory to the expected norm. And that's where the debate takes place.
So, Mr. Nader, let's move into something else. We don't want to stay too long in one subject.
That's right.
And I know that you have some items that you want to bring up, you want to talk about it as well.
Sure.
Okay, and we might be talking about things that maybe are not related to the Assemblyman, but lots of people, at least on Yonkers Voice, they want to hear from you, but they want to hear your opinion about everything. You are an idol and an icon to many, and what you say, it's important to us, because you might see it in a different way, from a different angle, that sometimes I might have an opinion about something, but when I hear what you have to say, I said, I didn't look it from that direction. I was wrong, okay? So that's why I'm asking you about things, young.
But I appreciate it. Before I was a legislator, I'm an educator for over 40 years. I'm a community guy, served God knows on how many community-based organizations. I'm a family man, raised 5 kids, Yonkers Public School product myself. My kids are Yonkers Public Schools. So you're right. I can, my opinions are varied, and my skills and my experience are varied. So that's why I really appreciate the opportunity, whether sometimes talking about national affairs or state or local, on education, on healthcare, on foreign affairs. I'm a historian by nature. I'm a social science background person. So I really enjoy, and I love the discussions. I love the opportunity. And I believe, say as you feel. I try to give my opinion. I consider myself historically a conflict resolution, a consensus builder. So my training is to really look at every angle, look at every side, and be able, when I talk about a topic, to really balance it as much as possible.
Well, Mr. Nader, thank you. I didn't want you to say, why is Ru asking me this? This has nothing to do with my job. It's because people respect your opinion. People want to know what you think about different subjects. So I think it's a plus. I'm glad that they see you that way. Mr. Nader, JFK Marina, there is a proposal to build a parking lot above the parking lot that it's there now, multi-level parking lot. They also, the owner, the current owner, Layla Gorm, something like that. I'm sorry if I'm saying her name wrong. Bought the plant years back. No one opposes the repair, revitalization of the old power plant. Everyone is on the go. The objection, it's with the parking lot. People don't want to lose that space. A lot of people feel that space is kind of a secret to them. It's a place where they go after work. If they all wind up, they go there to relax, look at the river, wind down, have a little something to eat, talk to friends. What do you know about that, and where do you stand on it?
It's an important topic impacting Yonkers, and I'm familiar with the issue. I often myself enjoyed the JFK Marina many times, to look at the Hudson River. And when I spoke earlier about my many hats and many responsibilities and roles over the years in Yonkers, one was serving as a trustee of the Yonkers Parks Board. And our philosophy for many years, was to protect parkland in Yonkers. And this is an issue that's crucial, and I respect both opinions and groups that are out there lobbying. From one end, we all agree, as you said, Rue, that what I consider this eyesore, this old Connet plant that's been on the waterfront there since the mid-1970s, right? 45 years ago, this eyesore needs to be developed. We got to do something with it. So from one end, I myself support the developers that are looking to take an initiative and take on this eyesore that was dangerous for many kids for many years and develop it and make it something that's beautiful, something that's safe. At the other end, I also respect the many Yonkers residents, homeowners and property owners that feel that the last remaining piece of parkland in Yonkers is the JFK Marina. And that parkland that has access to the beautiful view of the Hudson River and the Palisades, may be damaged permanently when we take away the parkland with parking. So I've taken the position that we should never give away unless we can trade parkland that's suitable and similar. But honestly, there's no other parkland on the waterfront here in Yonkers. And it's not only for the members of that community. Members throughout the city of Yonkers strongly believe, whether west or east, north or south, that we have to preserve parkland. I myself feel that we shouldn't hinder the development, but we should work together to encourage the developer to look at other alternatives for parking. Because honestly, when you take away the parkland, and what's being proposed is to have people go to the roof of the parking facility and begin to utilize it that way, it's not the same. So we support development, but I encourage the developers to look at alternates to how they can meet the needs of their project without taking the parkland from Yonkers residents. So I'm very big on protecting parkland.
Now, Mr. Nader, have you been inside the plant?
I've looked at it from the outside, and there was a number of years ago where some of the kids were hurt there that were playing, going through empty open doors or windows or climbing barriers. And that's why I think many of us in public service over the years wanted something done with that development. So it is dangerous. I, for one, strongly would love to see, that property developed and beautified and put to use here in Yonkers. It's really an eyesore.
Yes. Well, the reason I asked was because I was invited for a walkthrough, and I did the walkthrough yesterday. You might want to watch that video. The building is beautiful inside, sir.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And I think once it's done, it's going to be a pleasure to look at it. But we have both angles. Some people are no one is objecting to the building, of the plant itself. It's the parking lot. Now, I have to put you on the spot right now, Mr. Nader. There is someone saying, I'm going to say the question before I tell you who it is.
Yeah.
Asking you, who is your favorite nephew?
Who is my favorite nephew? Whoa. Well,
and I guess is one of your nephews asking that question.
Yeah.
So you be careful.
Is it Joseph asking me?
That's Joseph.
He's a good man, Joseph, huh? He's a good man. I'm blessed with so many nephews and nieces, and now I have 3 grandchildren, that I love and I enjoy. But Joseph is definitely up there. He's a good man, and he's cultured and he's respected, and so I appreciate that he's listening to the show.
Oh, he is. But I think he thought that you were going to say it's Joseph, but you gave me an answer that you're not here, you're not there. Right answer. Mr. Nader, what are you working on lately?
Well, lately, we spoke numerous. even though Yonkers, with the new amount of federal stimulus aid, Yonkers should get some $12 million, $12 billion really, New York State into education. Yonkers, with federal and state funding, should be receiving from the municipal end over $100 million. And the school system, we were able to enhance funding. Totally the state funding for education that the Assembly proposed was over $29 billion, which is an increase of over $3 billion over last year. With the federal funds we're getting, and we said earlier how important it was for Chuck Schumer, our New York senator, to be the majority leader. New York State received, in my opinion, practically double of what we would have gotten if there was another administration in Washington. So we're really on track, in my opinion, for this year and at least next year to really have a decent amount of funding. So all the parents that are listening, the educational community, I really think, we're headed in the right direction of adequate funding so we can make sure we have adequate summer school programs, we can have support services in sports and music and art, and make sure that there's no layoffs, and make sure that we can continue education once schools are open fully. I also put in a separate proposal for $1 million of special funding to have summer school at 10 locations in Yonkers, because I know the value of summer school, and especially now with distance learning and online learning, many of our kids really need a lot more support to catch up, because I don't think many of our kids are up to par with the lack of stability in the learning process. So summer school for me is crucial. I'm advocating heavily for that. Support service, mental illness, we put $10 million proposed the Assembly for mental illness, $10 million for the homeless students and population. I think the budget this year is a good budget. Now, having said that, I have bills in Albany I'm fighting very strongly for to change the way New York State funds education. Why? Because as we said on numerous shows, there's an inequity there. They base how much money they give Yonkers on the basis of the wealth of Westchester County. When 75–80% of Yonkers kids are on free and reduced lunch, there's no correlation there. So we get $4,000 or $5,000 a year less per kid than kids in Buffalo and Rochester and Syracuse that have the same numbers, same percentages of student population, whether special ed, English language learners. To me, that's unconstitutional, that's inequitable, and the state formula of how they fund education must change. So I have major legislation that promotes change in funding, that allows us to utilize more funds to rebuild schools in Yonkers, to renovate schools and expand schools. Right now, we're 4,000 to 5,000 seats short in Yonkers. Our buildings on the average are 80 years old. It's terrible. So as a Yonkers representative, and honestly, as an educator, I was a principal for over 30 years, as a trustee of the Yonkers Board of Ed for 6 years, president of the board. So I know the issues. I know the concerns as a Yonkers, as a parent, as an educator. So my goal in Albany is change the way they fund schools so we in Yonkers are not shortchanged, where year after year we're begging Albany, fix our problem, fix our problem. They need to do something drastic, and the only way is to change the way, the formula of how they fund education.
Mr. Nader, without planning, we went right into the next subject, education. You have a 30-year experience in the education field. You are now an elected official that represents us in Albany. We elected two powerful women to the Senate, Senate Meyer, Senator Andrea's cousin, Stuart cousin. Very powerful people. We all expected that things would be changing. Has anything changed drastically that we can actually measure it? And the other question is, with your experience, are you part of the committee, education committee? And if not, why not?
That's a good question. When I came to the assembly in 2018, even though I was a newcomer, I argued, with the powers to be up in Albany, and I said, hey, I'm probably the most involved legislator in the state with education, with my experience at all levels, in education, from teacher to administrator to trustee, even to serving as president of the Big Five school districts in New York. So I understood urban education as well as anyone from A to Z. They said to me, well, education is a crucial committee. They gave me the health committee, they gave me energy, banking, cities, property, taxation. So I served on many committees, but I said, you know what? I wanted education. The speaker promised me, as soon as an opportunity, because that's a very sought out committee. Recently, I was put on the education committee, which for me was an honor. So I'm a member now. With this session that recently started in January, I'm now a member of the Education Committee. And last week, one of the subcommittees under Education Committee is a subcommittee for students with special needs, which is another crucial committee. So I'm the chairman of that committee. Already, we're communicating and reaching out to many advocates of special education schools, special education services for students in need with emotional, mental, physical disabilities, learning disabilities. And we're now putting together the plans for major roundtables, discussions, hearings, so that we can begin to restore the funding, like we did in Yonkers in many ways, on the state level, to the category of special education. Now, that type of committee really puts me in a position where I become a bigger voice on budgetary issues involved in education in general, on issues involved in special education funding and services. And also, as a member of the Health Committee, we have the Elizabeth Seton Pediatrics Center on Executive Boulevard. These are young men and women, children really, that get the proper services, sometimes lifelong disabilities where they're getting treatment. Presently, when they turn 21 years old, they're forced out of there because these centers, the way the reimbursement structures between pediatrics and adult centers, they lose out. So many of these young people that have stability, that get the services they need and deserve, are forced out of those centers, which causes a problem. I put forth legislation recently, and it's also co-sponsored in the Senate by the Majority Leader, Andrea Stewart-Cousins, that allows the reimbursement to continue to serve the needs of those young people. And it's really an example, whether it's in healthcare, in education, having the hands-on experience, really allows you, when you look to legislate, you look to change, you look to initiate new policies, new procedures, new funding sources, so that you can address and fix problems. And I tell all the listening audience that if there's any recommendations, anything you feel in any aspect of life that you feel are either not working to the way they should, or policy needs to be changed or modified or geared in a different way, speak up. The assembly is the people's house. That's where policy starts. Before the governor signs on bills, before the Senate approves, it starts in the New York State Assembly. That's where I serve. So some of the best legislation, and I have some 40 bills that I sponsored, dealing with utility companies, with all the issues we've had with phone companies and utility companies, and when we had storms and the amount of outages we've had, and the lack of customers being satisfied was terrible. So we extended those legislative changes through policy so that permanently people in New York can at least feel better. So on legislation, I welcome the audience to speak up. Some of the best advice I had as a principal for many years that changed school policy and made education better came from talking to children, to students, or to parents, or to teachers. And sometimes you talk to a group of students and you say, wow, that's really a great idea. Let's do that. And I say it as an administrator, as a legislator, that the opinions to a large extent come from the bottom and they rise up. So to all the listening audience, recommendations, speak up, let your legislators know, whether local, county, state, or even federal.
Well, Mr. Nader, I have somebody here who is not very happy with your office. Her name is Caroline Elizabeth Marie. She said that she called your office pre-pandemic and no one ever called her back. I guess she wanted to speak with you or speak with somebody, but no one ever returned the call. Do you know?
That's unfortunate, because in my office and my staff, even during the height of the pandemic, was one of the few offices where we were nearly staffed every single day, taking care of constituent issues involving people that needed help with vaccination appointments, people that needed help with unemployment. Sometimes, situations may arise, and I tell individuals, please don't give up. It's not intentional. The mindset in my office is very much constituent service oriented. And I myself, again, my educator hat on, I'm a strong advocate of communications and reach out. And so if there is an issue, I apologize on behalf of the staff, but please don't give up and reach out again.
Mr. Nader, I can relate exactly to what you're saying, because once in a while I get the same complaint. Drew, I try to message you, but you never reach out back to me. Sometimes things do happen.
Yeah.
I get pulled in a different direction, that it's an important issue and my mind goes that way. And unfortunately, I forget about the other things, but it's never intentionally.
Exactly.
It happens. So I tell people, if the issue why you call me, it's important enough, call me back.
Exactly, yeah.
Call me back.
Good point.
So now I have here Amani Samir Haddad. Can you tell Dr. Nader we are lucky to have him in our community? I have spoken to many people of the Jordanian community. And Mr. Nader, I have to tell you, I haven't heard anyone that said, I'm not happy. We need to get him out of there. I am sure that you're not going to please everybody. It's an impossible task.
Sure.
Okay, it's an impossible task. But I see that the large majority, not just Jordanians, everyone in Yonkers, they are very happy with the service that you are providing. Mr. Nader, I'm going to ask you a question, and I already know the answer, because very often when I ask, I know the answer, but I want to see if you surprise me. And if you're not going to give me the political answer, I'm focused on what I'm doing now, I'm not looking for anything in the future, which probably that's what you're going to say. So please surprise me. Mr. Nader, I know that you love to serve the people of your city, county, and state. And when you love that so much, that is possible chances that you want to help them even more. If you could look at the crystal ball, and I want to see where would be Mr. Nader be 40 years from now, where would he be if you could make it happen, sir?
Well, that's a good question. When you love public service, you take what you do very seriously. When people ask me, what's your focus presently? Of course, my focus, I'm the New York State Assemblyman representing the city of Yonkers, and for me, I'm blessed where, I represent practically the entire city of Yonkers. And Yonkers is the only community I represent. So I'm really the only member of the state delegation where, I don't have to worry about other communities. Not that I don't, I do worry about what happens in this state, in the nation, in the world. But for me, Yonkers is the most important component of my responsibility. And having been a Yonkers resident my entire life, I build a level of trust in the community. I build up a level where people trust that, whatever opinion I do, whatever position I take, it's based on what we said earlier, being able to be reasonable, being able to be a good listener, to give my opinion when I could, and really base it on trust and base it on goodwill and good faith. And I've done that my entire life, so I'm proud of my heritage. I have a large family. There's a large Jordanian American population you mentioned, and I'm very proud of their accomplishments in the community and what they've done. And I'm also proud that I consider myself a member of the community at large. Anybody that knows me, any hat I wore, any responsibility I've done in education, in law, in public service, I've done so representing the best interest of all the community. So that's been really my trademark. As far as where I would be, I just got reelected as New York State Assembly last November 2020, received nearly 36,000 votes, one of the highest percentage in that district ever. I'm proud of that. And a lot of that is based on my ability to really reach out to the entire Yonkers community. And I believe, although we wear party platforms and party endorsements, once you're elected to office, you represent everyone. Not only Democrats, we represent Republicans and independents, we represent homeowners and tenants, we represent landlords, we represent business people. So the way to represent efficiently is to really have an open mind and be able to listen to everybody's concerns and issues. Where I would be, I would honestly say, I would still be in public service. Now, in what capacity in public service, it really determines on what opportunities are available, what becomes open. Very often when you prematurely, and some people politically do that, before they're even elected to a certain spot or a seat, they may have their eyes set on something else. And I look at that as honestly being foolish. Focus on what's before you. You can safely say, of course, I'm a state assemblyman and my goal is to be the best state assemblyman I can be right now. People say to me, what if something else opens up or becomes available? If the political winds change and sometimes situations happen where opportunities arise, then at that point you make a judgment. Am I going to make a judgment? I'm always open for judgments.
Well, Mr. Nader, I have one question from somebody, and then I'm going to be more direct and ask you that direct question, and then you can choose to answer it in any way you like. You mentioned the opportunity. So let me ask this question first. This question comes from Carolyn Elizabeth Marie. She wants to know your position if you would support a parent that wants to be part of the school board. Right now the mayor appoints people to the board. Now, what if a parent wants one of those positions? Would you support a way that parents can be part and run for the elected positions in the school board?
Definitely. I mean, historically, although the board members are appointed by the mayor, very often we in education have supported what they call the Blue Ribbon Panel. And the Blue Ribbon Panel was intended to get people, parents predominantly, and community representatives to make sure it's representative of the section, of the cross-section of the community, ethnic representation, racial representation, to make sure that this committee interviews all interested applicants and at the end of the day makes the best decision as to who can best represent the best interest of children. I support parents that serve on the Board of Ed. I myself was a parent. Many of the trustees of the Board of Ed have children in the school system So I strongly support parents serving on the board. Now, if someone is interested, how can they? They should get a resume together. They should reach out to the office of the mayor. They should have a cover letter indicating if there's an opening to the Board of Education. I want to publicly state that I'm interested in serving as a trustee of the Board of Ed, and make that known. You know, they need to be involved. They need to be visible. If the opportunities arise to serve on certain commissions, or there's a parent group, serve on PTAs in their children's schools, you know, they need, in my opinion, to show a track record. If they're really serious about serving as a Board of Ed trustee, you don't want them to be in a position where somebody questions them and tells them, well, if you're that interested in education, are you involved in your student's school PTA? Have you served on committees that advocate? And there's many of them going on where parents are advocating for more technology for Yonkers schools, changes in the way. Now, some people may argue and say, well, maybe the mayor shouldn't appoint, maybe there should be an elected school board. And that's another issue. If there needs to be that discussion, then maybe parents need to speak up and say, you know what, many communities around us have elected school boards. Why don't we provide an elected school board? Some may say, well, in the case of Yonkers, many years ago, if you were looking for diversity on the Board of Education to reflect the student population, maybe the wrong people might have been elected to the school board by voter turnout and who votes and who doesn't vote. Some people may argue and say, well, you know what? Maybe having the mayor through a blue ribbon panel appoint trustees, you can focus and try to make sure that every large ethnic group and racial group in the city has a representative on the Board of Ed. Why is that important? It's important for children, important for parents, to make sure that those people making decisions involving their children's education know who they are and what they are. Now, I have a bill in Albany that encourages and funds projects to make sure that New York now hires staff members for schools with the idea of diversity, so that we can make sure that our hiring practices and who we encourage to go into educational programs in colleges and grants and fundings we give is so that we can hire more people of color, hire more African Americans and Latinos and Arab Americans and other ethnic groups that are reflective of the community that we live in. We've been saying this about law enforcement. How do you fix law enforcement? Develop more trust. Make sure that more cops that serve neighborhoods that are diversified, that the police officers are reflective of the neighborhood they serve. We say that for education. If a school in Yonkers, for example, has a high Latino population or African American or Arab American or other ethnicities, and there's no staff members at all that speak Arabic or speak Spanish or speak other languages, that's a problem. So my initiative is out of experience. For example, I know that as a school principal, if I had a child or parent that couldn't speak English and they spoke only Portuguese, I wanted to make sure I had a faculty member, a teacher aide, a staff member that spoke Portuguese or spoke Arabic or spoke Hindu or Urdu. And that's part of the initiation of making sure whatever hiring we do, whether education, law enforcement, healthcare, is multi-diversified, multicultural, and multi-ethnic and multilingual.
Mr. Nader, just before we go a little further, since you talk about law enforcement, and lots of people tell me exactly what you said, that the law enforcement should reflect our community. Well, there is a police class coming up in September. Police department is doing all that they can to recruit people that reflect the community. But guys, you have to sign up. You have to take the test. You have to do your part. Okay, police department cannot put people there just because they need to reflect. You must take that first step. We spoke about that right here on our show. And we even said that Yonkers Voice will pay for 2 students. You said that you will find a way to pay for 2 students.
Correct.
Yonkers Arts, I spoke with Ray Cox. He said he will pay for 1 or 2 students. There is something going on right now that the Yonkers Police Department are going to have training to prepare people for the police test that it's coming up in September. So take advantage of it. Don't be just a complainer. Take advantage of it.
Take advantage.
Yes.
We tell everyone, there's so many positions in city government and county government. There's an office of civil service. Anyone looking for work, in addition to their regular pattern of sending resumes, I tell everyone, I often encourage individuals and on this show to tell anyone who's looking for employment or even looking to grow. They may have a job already and they're looking to grow, go visit the civil service office in Yonkers in the county, and they have a list of all the civil service positions that are available, what the title of the job is, what the job duties are, what the salary of that job is, and it tells you what the requirements are. Very often, if there's a civil service exam, sign up for it. Sign up for it. When the exam is given, practice, prepare yourself. As you said, take the initiative. And when you have your name on 3, 4, 5, 10 potential positions, you have a greater likelihood of landing a better job than the person that sits home and complains and goes, well, there's no jobs out there. Have you tried? Have you gone out there?
Exactly. So, I have spoken to many individuals in the police department. They are not discriminating. They actually doing all that they can to get minorities to sign up.
Right.
They're offering training courses. They, to prepare those folks for the test in September. But those that are seeking those positions must take that first step.
That's right.
Now, in closing, Mr. Nader, we've been talking for over an hour, and you always do this to me. The conversation is so good that time goes, and I don't even notice that an hour had passed by. You got to stop that.
Well, we enjoy communications, and you've been out there disseminating information and the news, and we all agree that our job, whether public service or public relations or media, is disseminate the information, disseminate the news, try to keep it as truthful, as reasonable as possible, and make the audience, make our community more aware. I think if we do our job, we make everyone more aware of what's happening locally, what's happening in Albany, in Washington, even sometimes topics, what's happening across the world. That makes us more knowledgeable. It really makes us more efficient citizens, and it allows us to be better decision makers in everything we do. So I appreciate that.
That is my goal. I tell people all the time, listen, I try my best not to take sides, unless it's Donald Trump. But, but in regards to everything else, local politicians, I take no sides. I try the best to inform the people so the people can make an informed decision on what's going on. Now, this is the question of the night, of the day, Mr. Nader. In 3 years, Mayor Spano will end his last administration in 3 years. Hopefully, Mayor Spano will move on into maybe New York State Senator. I asked him that question, and he didn't want to, he did not want to answer me either. Okay, but that does not mean I don't ask. Okay,
sure.
That don't mean. So in 3 years, when Mayor Spano possibly moves into a New York State Senate, will Mr. Nader attempt to become the next mayor of Yonkers, city of Yonkers? With this one, we're going to close the episode.
Well, like I said, if options become available, and God willing, we continue to stay active and continue to stay blessed with the level of trust and support that we've enjoyed for many years, then it's definitely something that, of course, I would be interested. I love Yonkers, and I think I know the city as well as anyone else does, and I feel I have the skills and qualifications. So would I love to serve as mayor of Yonkers? Of course, and that's to be determined. And again, if the options become available, you have someone who is not only deserving, not only qualified, but I think has the determination to be a fair administrator representing the entire city. So I appreciate that.
If you do become a mayor, don't forget us.
Of course not.
Have a door open, say anytime Ru Ross calls for an interview, we get you.
Well, we do that all the time, right?
Yes, we do, sir.
But thank you very much, Ru. And again, happy Valentine's. What am I saying? Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Yes.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, and enjoy the day.
Thank you, sir. And until next week.
Bye-bye.